Okay, KF4ZTO, K4ARX portable. Do you want to go over to the MRA and try it out? You said you wanted to hear it.
Yeah, I haven't checked to see if the frequency is clear, but let's slide on down to 145430. KF4ZTO, QSY to 14543, and if that's busy, we'll jump on back up here. KF4ZTO, QSY.
Yeah, I don't hear anybody at the moment. K4ARX. Alright, remember, the display is wrong, but this is the MRA.
Okay, Kilo Fox 4 Zulu Tango Oscar Portable on the 14543 for radio test.
Yeah, it's over here. KF4ZTO, K4ARX. How copy, over?
Yeah, okay, that's very Lima, very Charlie. Excellent audio. Sounds very good. Sounds like Spectra. Nice clean audio. Nice and crisp. Very, very good. How's the receive sounding? I mean, I know we're running through the repeater, but still.
Yeah, you sound just as good over here as you did over there, as far as being portable. Is that an XTS?
Yes, sir. The XTS, the public safety speaker mic, and the Smiley antenna. This one, I guess they call it the 5/8 duck, 5/8 wave duck, seems to be the best match for this radio. The other one, well, there's the massive one that I have, but that's just really not practical, especially for walking around town. But yeah, get the mic real quick. This one seems to work best with these radios. I've got another couple antennas that I've tried, including the stock Motorola antenna, which I think is, tuned for like 155 or something. It's probably not giving the best match down on the lower frequencies here for 2 meters, whereas this antenna is tuned for I think 146.3 or 146.2 as the center frequency, and the radio seems to like it a lot better. The testing I've done with like field strength meter, it is definitely putting more RF actually out into space versus reflecting it back into the radio.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. It's I do the same thing with my HTs. I've already pretty much switched them all out, and did the same thing. Of course, I'm using the special one. The child's on the frequency counter. It's a little shorter and it's a little more handy. I don't have to extend out the telescoping antenna for that. I don't do a whole lot of low band stuff. But anyways, seems to be doing a fine job on both ends. I think you'll be happy with this, just as happy as you are with the XTS in your hand.
Okay, for ZTO portable for ID, absolutely. Yeah, it's sounding good. I was going to ask you another question about that. Oh, did you, and again, if you haven't done this, no big deal. Which of the two mics are you using? Are you using the white shell, clamshell one, or the one that's more like a beige color? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, not the cream in color, but the gray in color. It's not so much white as it is gray.
Okay, affirmative. Yeah, the cream-colored one always makes me think about, Adam 12 and all that. If it's the older style, but I know they're both kind of the same thing. And yeah, that's awesome. I mean, those mics are great. I know at least one op who took what's the name of that company? They make like really high-end mics for HF sideband use. The Heel. He took one of those elements and put it in one of those mics like the one you've got in your hand, and ran that with
How'd you know it was still in my hand?
with a unit in PC-122 CB, just because he could.
That's funny. I don't know if he needed it, but that's funny. Yeah, this is reminiscent to me of just, sitting around watching the California Highway Patrol on television way back when. I guess it was back in the 80s. Please tell me you know what the California Highway Patrol is.
KF4ZTO portable. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I mean, it's, it's like the standard public safety mic, and they are, really well put together, and it's kind of, it kind of dives in the, what if I could find one of these telephone style handsets where you can, I think with some of them you can set it so it routes the audio through the speaker, and then you can switch it between the the handset and the speaker, whereas you use the mic side of the handset as the mic. And I don't know if you've ever seen the film The French Connection, with Gene Hackman in it, but they're running they're doing like car stuff in the 70s, and they've got, I guess, the time for myself, Motrax, or whatever the early 70s Motorola radio was, and they're using those telephone handsets, but they're obviously using them just as mics for car stuff. And of course that's in New York, but makes you think about that. I know it's got the push to talk button right there in the middle.
Yeah, I imagine those were pretty big too, and they did their job. I know that was for more of a private conversation right there, if it was, than anything else. Instead of using the external speaker, it puts it right there in your ear, and like you said, you trigger it just like that, and it works just fine. Yeah, I suppose if you could find one, it'd be something to do. I don't know if you could wire it up for this. It's got such a special connector on it, but this is the thing, and it works. And yeah, I think the coil on this microphone has a very good bit of discoloration to it. It looks kind of chalky now.
KF4ZTO portable, yeah, that's the only downside. I think the other one is in a little bit better shape, but I'll probably just run it like that, and have the other one as the backup, or vice versa. And if I need to get a new one, do that. And excuse me, yeah, telephone handsets that I've seen, some of them have what appears to be the same connector that those mics have, plus the speaker connector. So it would stand to reason that you unplug the speaker and unplug the mic, and then just pop that in there. But yeah, what you're talking about is exactly what I think the intended application was. Just kind of, if you're doing car-to-car surveillance type stuff, you don't want your receiver audio blaring out of the car in the first place anyway.
Yeah, you wouldn't need much of a PL then, at least not locally, but on the air, of course. Yeah, it'd be pretty cool. I always thought about having an old Dodge Diplomat or something like that, maybe a Monaco.
Shoot, what was it that they drove in the Bluesmobile? Was that a Diplomat?
No, I believe that was the Monaco.
I just remember him being like, oh, it's got cop tires, cop suspension, and doesn't have catalytic converters, so it'll run on regular gas and all that stuff. Dark, and we're wearing sunglasses, whatever it was. But yeah, classic. No, I mean, an anecdote about the Diplomat that I'll have to relay off the air, but they're still being used for certain applications.
Yeah, I don't think the Monaco lasted too long. It was shortly replaced later by the Stereo Co.
That's a good one.
Be honest, that was horrible. Gee, I can't think of a place really where I haven't been where there was a I guess that was an account with Harley Davidson and often Honda and probably now BMW that they used. Some precinct would have that and the ability to go over there and pick up a bunch of motorcycles and have them marked for theirs and added radios and lights and stuff.
Yeah, I know there's a pretty good website. It's run by a hand with a six-land call. So he's out of California, where he goes back into the history of the CHP system, or the CHP system, I should say. And there was a point in time where the control head on the radio actually did have a PL on, PL off switch. So the base stations and presumably the other mobile, or presumably the mobiles in transmit mode, transmitted tones, but the end user could turn the tone off and on, which is odd. Seems odd to me, but their whole setup, at least their old one, was really, really weird. The mic. Timed out, timed myself again. The mics actually had two push-to-talk buttons on them.
It's a good thing.
The receiver had basically a
You
dual
talk a
watch
lot.
feature, and
Oops, I was trying to avoid
a bunch of
that.
other weird stuff. But what I was going to say was Florida Highway Patrol, or whatever they are, had a special order Mustang, like the old Fox body. That was I think they called it like special service package or something like that, and it was ordered from the factory specifically for Florida. And I don't think it had the lights and the radios, but they included all the the hookups for that, all that stuff.
I don't know, but it used to be pretty popular in Georgia. I knew a guy that had one. I knew a few guys that had one, and they black them out. The labels come off, and they were just black anyways. They had the certain wheels, especially the Eagle STs on it. One guy was, he was afraid to drive it simply because it had dual pipes that would hang out from beneath. It looked like an LX, but it would fly like a, Florida State Patrol. I think he loaned it out one day, and it finally got rolled over.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but from what I've heard, those things were absolute streamers, which, makes sense. It's just like the Chevrolet SS, which they sold as the Caprice PPV Interceptor, which had a 6.0 liter V8. And I know that Virginia State Police had or has a handful of those, and they're all slick tops. May or may not be completely unmarked, but specifically so they, have that capability to run that heavy V8 in there. It's rear-wheel drive, so you can do all the fun, as my dad would put it, diplomatic driving maneuvers.
Oh yeah, I've seen some modifications. I knew a deputy sheriff down there in Jackson County, and that's right on the Interstate 85. They run that corridor, or at least in their county they did. And people always ask them, why do they have a spoiler on the back of the car? There's nobody else in the world that we know of that has a spoiler on their Crown Vic. He says, well, oftentimes we have to cross the median in the interstate, and officers were ripping the bumpers off the cars. It just, the plastic could come right off as soon as they'd cross that, and it would bottom out and whatnot. They had to put skid plates on the bottom of those cars. And in order to keep those cars from coming off the ground at high rates of speeds, they had to put a spoiler on the trunk lid just to keep it on the ground, just because they had to add skid plates.
Yeah, putting the skid plates on there actually gave it a little bit of
A lift.
an airfoil shape, so it would start to, I can see that, start to lift up off the ground at some serious speed. Man, it's kind of crazy to think that they discontinued the Crown Vic, and then they they, ran the Taurus for a while, and then they discontinued that. And it's like, can you even get a sedan now? Police package sedan. They discontinued the Impala.
KF4ZTO, K4ARX. Sure you can, but it's an SUV now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just weird, old school or whatever.
Maybe.
SUV doesn't scream police interceptor to me. It screams roll over. But I guess you could do that in a sedan too if you really tried. I feel like it's a little bit easier to do that in a higher center of gravity vehicle. Oh yeah, I have an unrelated question for you. Let me into the mic real quick. So I was reading or rewatching a I guess I could say the documentary about the container ship El Faro, EL or Echo Lima Space Foxtrot Alpha Romeo Oscar. It's a roll-on, roll-off container ship that also you could roll trailers and just regular vehicles onto it. And it was lost in the Bermuda Triangle. Like, steamed straight into a hurricane. I think it was a Cat 4 at the time, right into the eye wall. I'm going to key the mic. And aside from the, obvious question mark of why somebody would do that in the 21st century, there was the whole thing brought up about the fact that they had a whole bunch of refrigerated trailers on board. And at some point, due to the ship rocking and rolling, something, probably a trailer, got loose and banged against the fire main, which is open to the sea, and then the ship started to flood. And, next part should be obvious, but in regards to refrigerated trailers, I was reading a comment saying, hey, these things are stupid top heavy. That's probably what doomed it.
I don't know. It depends on how you load those things. They try to keep those low center of gravity regardless, so that when they meet a trailer again, I guess, or a chassis, they'd be as low to the ground as possible as far as the center of gravity goes. But it sounds to me like it's more of an insurance scam. You send it off into the storm and claim the loss, and get paid for it. Probably get paid for it better than you would have for the freight anyways.
It seems like it's a combination of the captain had just found out that he had been passed over for a promotion. Gee, I wonder why, They didn't think his judgment was very, very sound, and then he steams directly into the, anyway. Well, no, they're on trailers. They're loaded onto the ship. Some of the containers are loaded as containers, just stacked on top of each other. But underneath that, in the hold, it's just trailers, just rows and rows of trailers. And of course, they're not secured to the deck in the proper way. Instead of having them, each trailer secured physically to the deck, it had a length of chain that all the trailers and cars are connected to that chain, and then that chain is secured to the deck in like 2 spots. So super secure. But yeah.
Well, I don't know the story, but it would seem to be fairly close to the way they do it anyways, if it was on a chassis. There's only 4 securement points on the chassis, and that's one on each corner, and that's really about it. They kind of lock it into place. No chains or straps, and that's that, and that's the way you got to carry it. One of the many reasons why I wouldn't do that, because sometimes some of those corner locks, they just don't latch.
KF4ZTO for ID. Yeah, I mean, you should look it up at some point. It's a fascinating story, and just like an airplane, it's got a what do you call it, a voyage data recorder, but it's got a whole bunch of mics up there on the bridge, and instead of recording for the hour leading up to the event, it's the 24 hours leading up to the event. So they've got the transcript is available online, and it's, I don't know, 700 pages long. But you can definitely feel the tension ratcheting up as the junior officers were saying, you know, sir, I don't think this is a good idea. I think maybe we should change course, and so on. But yeah, the thing that really sunk them in the end, no pun intended. Let me get the mic.
Oh, this the hurricane, maybe?
Is the oil level? You know, the steam turbine. The oil level was at the absolute lowest it could be. So the ship is listing, and they turn the ship around, so it's listing the other direction. And when they did that, the oil sloshed to the other direction, you know, in the, I guess the oil pan, which of course is huge on a ship like that, but it sloshed onto the other side, so the bell mouth that pulled the oil in for the turbine was open to air. And so the system senses, wait, there's no oil pressure, shuts it down, and then they can't turn it back on because there's no oil, so the system thinks, and then they've lost propulsion, they've lost the ability to decide which direction they're going, and that was that.
Yeah, it sounded like they would have had to take time to purge the air out of that system and you know, get the oil back up to where it needed to be. Much like a fuel system too, but it won't run if it's got air in the system. Brakes are kind of the same way if they're air brakes. Of course, if you've got fluids in the air brakes, that gives you absolutely no pressure to the system to stop the darn thing. Of course, that's got nothing to do with boats, but
For ZTO portal, almost back to my destination. Yeah, no, it's a fascinating story, like I said, and it's like if they had just kept the, you know, lube oil where it should have been, that wouldn't have happened, but all these other things would have happened with the vehicles or the containers, whatever it was, bouncing around and banging open the fire main and everything else, all these other problems that they had. But yeah, they all souls were lost on that, so paraphrase somebody else, the crew is expendable and the ship is heavily overinsured. So, and with that, I'll go ahead and go QRD.
all right, sounds good. Good conversation. We'll catch up with you later. KF4ZTO, K4ARX.
KF4ZTO portable, absolutely, and thanks again for doing the test on that Spectra. It's sounding killer. So I will talk to you pretty soon, I'm sure. KF4ZTO out.